Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 8. I don't remember what episode we're on. I think we're on episode 8.
Whoops, it's actually episode 9. Sorry, guys.
Of the Limelight podcast. And today we are going to be talking to Dr. Sloan about persisters and biofilms and clearing up some confusion about those topics. So, without further ado, hi, Dr. Sloan.
Hello, Maddie. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday. So I guess, let's just jump right into kind of the basics. There's been a lot of talk lately on the feeds, on the socials about persister forms and SOT, and historically, Lyme literate doctors have really been struggling to treat and fight these biofilm persister forms of Lyme. And typically it's something that is a challenge for people to treat. There's been some questions of whether or not SOT is able to work even despite biofilms and persisters. So we just want to clear that up. So let's start out. Can you explain what a biofilm is and what a persister form is, so we're all on the same page?
So if you look up any document on persisters as well as biofilm, but especially persisters, you will find that a persister form of a spirochete is only due to its shifting of something that makes it change its form or replication sequence. So we posted a document not too long ago that shows that a persister is only a persister because in response to an antibiotic, it shifts into a persister. So spirochetes change form due to pH imbalances, to pH changes, to environmental changes. Spirochetes change form even due to response of other vector diseases like Epstein-Barr virus and cytomegalovirus. So spirochetes are super duper evasive, and they can change to forms all the time that are different than their original form. But a persister only exists because it is trying to shift from antibiotic. So we only have persisters, and apparently, according to documents I've just looked at, it's maybe 1% of the entire percentage of the spirochetes in your body at that time. And biofilms only exist because spirochetes are running into a form to hide from antibiotics also, or other changes in the human body. And that there's like maybe 10 different things that we can do to our body. Even hyperthermia will shift a spirochete. Temperature changes, like I said, nutritional changes, other disease changes, they shift and they change. So they're really only there as a response of the treatment. So my patient, that's why it's so easy for me to treat patients that haven't been antibiotically treated for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not so much of that biofilm and persisters. Not that it doesn't work, it just takes a little bit longer to get through all those different phases of things.
So, I've seen that video where the spirochete's swimming along and the antibiotic comes in, and then all of a sudden it like curls up into a ball.
Correct.
It's very terrifying, honestly, to watch. And then imagine like that being in your body, like, ooh. But, so that is that what's happening when a biofilm is forming? It's like seeing the threat of the antibiotic and being like, okay, I'm going to go do this now.
Yeah. So that we should post that. It's a really,
Okay.
really cool, to me, it's kind of cool. YouTube that anybody can see. And you can see that the spirochete's hanging out, and when exposed to the antibiotic, on the slide, you see it moving a little bit, and then it forms a blip. And it pulls all the DNA of its form into the middle and balls up to cyst form. And it's within probably 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So now it's hidden. Now it's a persister, or maybe it's going dormant because all the genetics are on the inside of it and it's protecting itself. but it's still living.
Right.
Okay, it's still living. So SOT works by two different methods, and everybody needs to understand this. SOT does stop replication sequences. A persister, which is really dormant, a dormant spirochete that's not replicating very quickly or has inhibited replication, is still alive.
Right.
So it needs fluid from the human body to stay alive, and it still has DNA. So SOT molecules work through that like it's not even there. Like we can see a spirochete under a microscope, but we can't see genetics. The SOT molecules are so tiny. We can't see them with a microscope.
Right.
So a biofilm, a persister, anything that is in the body is exchanging metabolism to the body. So it has to go through these molecules, which SOT antisense is made for that patient from that Borrelia sequence, RNA sequence, 500 million to 1 billion copies. And they're surrounded with a synthetic messenger RNA, so they stay alive once they go through the cell. That's why they last for up to 6 months.
They're so cool. I love those little guys. So that's, I think I read something that was talking about in these biofilms, they almost create like little, to me, it's mind blowing how incredibly intelligent these little bacterium are. Because they have like a whole respiration system where they're still like bringing in fluid to like for nutrients, and they're excreting toxins. So you're still getting toxins being pumped into your body from these little balls of biofilm, even though your immune system can't recognize them anymore.
Correct. Yeah, it's a lipophilic, so it makes a fat layer around the biofilm, which they're having like a party in there. This is kind of a big statement, but using antibiotics to kill Borrelia, which is super persistent, maybe even more persistent than MRSA. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's equatable to like using chemotherapy to kill cancer. I mean, you honestly almost have to kill your patient with chemotherapy,
right,
to kill the cancer. So you almost have to like antibiotic someone to death. Right. Think about your gut bacteria. Our gut bacteria and the bacteria in the human body outnumbers our cells 10 to 1. So we have like 10 trillion cells in the human body, 50, 60, 70, 80 trillion bacteria cells in the human body. So you literally have to kill almost all the bacteria in the human body to maybe affect a spirochete's bacterium, which is very resistant because they hide in a lipophilic form. So non-lipophilic antibiotics do not work.
So and let me know if I'm correct in this assumption. So the antibiotic can only kill the spirochete when it is replicating, right?
No, the antibiotic can so the antibiotics that are non-lipophilic, like doxycycline,
right?
They're bacteria, they're in a form, they can kill live spirochetes in the blood. But remember,
so is that all the time? Because I remember there being there was something about Lyme where the reason that it was so hard to treat and you had to treat it for so long with antibiotics because the life cycle was however many days.
Yeah, and then it hides in biofilm, because if you give a non-lipophilic antibiotic like doxy, it's going to hide in biofilm. So doxy is non-lipophilic.
Right.
Minocycline is lipophilic. But if you get early Lyme and you use minocycline, you may have more side effects and symptoms. You may not feel very well. So a wonderful American conclusions to that problem is to not use minocycline because you feel bad when you take it, to use doxy because you feel better when you take it. And in 2 weeks, you're cured of Lyme.
Right.
Not really.
But what you've really done is every time that antibiotic is coming to a Lyme spirochete, it's really teaching that Lyme spirochete how to hide.
Yep.
So essentially, there's really because what I'm trying to understand is how the antibiotic would work at all. But basically what you're saying is it's much more likely that if you're taking a non-lipophilic antibiotic and that antibiotic encounters a spirochete, it's way more likely to teach that spirochete to go into a biofilm than it is to destroy that spirochete.
Yes, it's a defensive mechanism. So maybe you do kill some in the blood that are floating through, but the other ones are going to hide in the biofilm in dormant or persisters. And persisters are only there because of antibiotic therapies or hyperthermia or other things that it wants to move away from its normal milieu and change its shape. So it's a very intelligent bacteria. It has the longest DNA cycle of any sequence of any bacteria in the human body. It's the smartest bacteria in the human body. And, you know, it has a lot of intelligence, and it can hide in many shapes and forms, and it can shape shift except from genetic molecules that are tiny, teeny, tiny little parts and pieces. When you see a spirochete, which everybody can see online,
Mm-hmm.
you're really, 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 really far away from looking inside of it into a cell, into the nucleus, and seeing a small oligonucleotide called a sense strand go from the nucleus DNA. The nucleus releases the sense strand, which is a very tiny oligonucleotide sequence that hits the ribosome within the cell, and the ribosome makes another copy.
It's kind of, it's something that I've struggled with is just wrapping my head around the scale of things, because I think we all just kind of think, oh, I can't, it's like, micro, it's all tiny, but then we don't understand, and I don't really think they teach this well. In terms of microbiology, there are so many different sizes of things that it's even more vast than, something you might be able to comprehend is how much bigger the sun is from the earth. But
Yeah.
even that is crazy, a huge difference. But that's even more, like 100-fold difference between a piece of DNA and a bacteria.
A millionfold.
Yeah. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Just for perspective, now I'm not sure if this may work, but I like cool facts. I think you and I are both just human factoids. I can't even have like normal conversation in public anymore. It's got to be science, or I need a chart. If the human body walks into a 5,000 square foot building, you are the nucleus and the electrons are the wall. There's that much space just in that that thought. But so we try to say this: if a cell inside a micron is as big as the United States of America, then the DNA may be size of a top of the piece of a grass.
Wow. All right.
So SOT molecules are so small the immune system doesn't recognize them.
Right.
They're very, very short oligonucleotides. And if you want to give this some research, you have to Google antisense, SENSE, oligonucleotide, or YouTube that, not SOT. So the Germans and the Swedes came up with this ability to turn off RNA sequences many, many years ago, like 30 years ago. And they didn't know how to make it from the person's own stuff on RNA sequences. So they were just using off-the-shelf stuff for every disease. So it wasn't specific to the target. So then it didn't have the same, so it had more side effects because it may get into your human genome and inhibit some replication there. Whereas RGCC has advanced that from antisense AOT to SOT. So they distance the language just to make sure that they know that now it's short oligonucleotide therapy. and is specific to the patient, from the target that we tell them to target for looking for that RNA sequence.
Cool.
Maybe I got way off question there, but
It would be like if you needed an organ transplant and instead of getting it from a different person that passed away, someone cloned you and made your own organ in a lab.
yeah, sure. I like that. Try to translate my.
I don't know if that makes any, that might not make sense to anyone else, but that, whatever. But that's, that clears things up a little bit for me. And I know, I've even tried to find out the scale of just the spirochetes are so unimaginably small, and the scale of viruses versus even bacteria is so incredibly different. So the whole realm of microbiology is, there's as many shapes and sizes of things in the tiny realm as there are in the realm of things that we can see.
Yeah, so people that are looking under a microscope to see a spirochete, I'm very disillusioned by that, because I have a really, really nice Nikon microscope, and I can see things that kind of look spirochete-ish, and you'll have practitioners say they can see them all the time, but they're almost as big as a red blood cell, which is 5 microns. These things are much, 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 much smaller. They're size of viruses, and they can. The interesting thing about a spirochete, of course, it goes this way and that way. It can drill into hard tissue, so it can move through human tissue at 1/4 centimeter in 2 hours, and not through your blood system. It's through tissue systems. But they're itty bitty. So they made a really, really intelligent bug. And I say this to patients very, very easily. I would not be treating Lyme as a chronic disease integrative ecologist and autoimmune physician if I didn't have SOT, because I'm not going to sit here and pulse antibiotics back and forth and maybe palliatively make you feel better. And I'm not quite ready, but maybe I'm getting there to say that if you do all these antibiotics over time, when you do feel better, I don't even really think it's having a kill effect on the spirochete. It's having a hiding effect.
Yeah.
And then later we see the autoimmune precursors start to pick up. So when I see a patient, if they feel like, I saw a gentleman today from North Carolina, he's probably listening. His wife is a really, really awesome health practitioner. He's super smoking hot with Lyme. And he even has brain antibodies, because now we can actually test blood antibodies to see if you're having your immune system go through parts of your brain before an MRI would show that you have MS. So I can see myelin antibody, tubulin antibody, glial antibody, cerebellum antibody, and there's one more. Oh, no, it just went away. There's one more. So I can see 5 antibodies to see if your immune system has it's not attacked, but like gone through that part of the tissue. So it had a really high myelin antibody. But his only complaint right now is that towards the end of the day, my legs feel weak. And I said, well, if I did an MRI on your brain, I probably wouldn't see demyelization big enough to call it MS, but the weakness in your legs may turn into weakness early in your legs, and then a foot drop, and then eventually we could call it MS. So we can test these things very accurately today. So the spirochetes, after a tick bite, the spirochete can be found within every tissue in the human body within 72 hours.
That's crazy. You say the antibody can be found?
The spirochete can be found within every tissue in the human body within 72 hours.
So if you get a tick bite, any place that you test, in 72 hours, you got a spirochete.
Tick, yeah. spirochete. We can test human tissue all over. They replicate quickly, some slowly. It's seemingly like a cancer cell, and we're just very, very fortunate to have this treatment that wasn't even something that was on my radar at all, because I treat integrative oncology and RGCC. 95% of what they do is research and development for the latest and greatest targeted immunotherapy and SOT for cancer. And it was a few years later, they said, oh, by the way, here's this email. We can do SOTs for these other viruses. So they call Borrelia virus.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to argue with them, you're stupid. Because Borrelia in a lab is a virus.
You mean in a person?
Yeah, Borrelia in a laboratory setting, when they study it, is a virus.
That's so interesting.
Virulent. So when we check the box for an SOT, it's a viral agonist.
Why? I know you've answered this question before, but I'm forgetting. Why is it that they consider, because it's much bigger than a typical virus. It has more DNA than a typical virus. Why is it considered a virus?
It's virulent. It has to work within the cell.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's classified as a virus if it's using your cells to replicate.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give a call to Panos at RGCC and let him explain this, and then we'll all be dumbfounded because his intelligence makes us all look like kindergartners.
That would be awesome. We should have him on the podcast. That'd be so fun.
We will.
That'd be really cool.
Yes.
What was I going to ask you? I think, all of this very much rings true for what my experience has been. Because, before I met you, I was on tons of antibiotics, tons, like 5 different ones, antibiotics. And I was on, I was doing the cyst busters and, all of that stuff. And I ended up, it just completely killed my gut flora. So that honestly, I think a lot of my symptoms from bad gut flora outweighed the symptoms of the Lyme. And then, after about 2 years of doing antibiotics, I did feel better, but I wasn't myself. And I had never been myself. I never was back to normal until the SOT.
Yes. So I'm just wondering, like, seriously, this is a thought to ponder. Do you feel better because of antibiotics, or do you feel better because eventually you just feel better, Well,
I really do think, because I actually took myself off antibiotics when I was, I was under the care of Joseph Jemsek, who's a, very well-renowned Lyme doctor.
He's a great guy. Yep.
Yeah, very wonderful person. But I was on, so I was working with him and then another doctor that lived like a few hours away from me in Georgia. And this, of course, was in 2009 or something, no one was Lyme literate. No one knew that there was Lyme disease existed. It was very hard for me to get a diagnosis. But, the only thing that they had was antibiotics. So they just, I did doxycycline for a month.
And me too. That's all I had was antibiotics, IV, vitamin C. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I didn't even do any of the, I was doing herbal stuff. I had like a plastic file cabinet box that was like this big that I was taking like 100 pills a day. It was awful.
Right.
And I just felt so just sick to my stomach all the time. I couldn't eat anything. I would literally, toward the end, I would wake up in the morning and drink like 2 ounces of Pepto-Bismol because I just felt like I was on the verge of puking constantly.
You're a Candida girl now.
Oh, it was Candida coming out my ears. It was awful. And so I was just like, I can't take these antibiotics. And I'd lost so much weight. I was like just frail and sad looking. It was awful. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get off of them. And I tried getting off of them once and I immediately had a flare. So I went back on. And then like a month later, I just kind of had this feeling. I was like, all right, it's time to go off. And I went off and it didn't come back. But at that point, you know, I'd gotten I was doing a lot of herbal therapies. I had my diet really under control. I didn't know how to eat healthy before this. This whole experience for me taught me how to eat healthy.
Right.
You know, so I started going gluten-free. I started doing all this other stuff
Yeah.
for my health that probably enabled my immune system to keep up with the virus on its own.
Well,
So
I
I
think
don't think it was the antibiotics.
that's part of the Lyme journey is getting healthy.
Yeah.
Like healthy overall for everything. That's why that we have such good success with SOT and other clinics may not. And I'm still disappointed that we don't have the data. We're getting data to look at our success rate, treating the whole person. See my text? Versus just being an SOT clinic. I am not an SOT clinic.
Right.
I am an integrative practitioner that specializes in chronic disease. I have been in business 21 years. We don't advertise. Our phone rings off the hook, and it's based on testimonials because we fix people no matter what we need to fix. And by the way, if you have Lyme, we have a treatment for that. And we've set in motion a sequence that can make you feel better for many different reasons. So like in your case, this is interesting. I think I've posted this before. If you look on your test, MDL or whatever, the Western blot is a test to test how well your immune system reacts to the outer surface proteins, A and B. Guess what that is?
Fungus.
It's a fungus. So the spirochete, when the immune system jumps onto it, it shoots off a flare, and that's a fungal ball. Super smart. So maybe antifungals would diminish their flare, and you could actually have better immune attack. And we're going to get better and better. We may move on from SOT. I don't know, because it's, you know.
It's pretty awesome. I don't think you should move on from SOT. I really like it.
Something better comes out. So, but the thing is, like, maybe, so a lot of patients need to know that success for an SOT isn't just that they start to feel better right away. It's the fact that their neurodegeneration or their autoimmune variants stop getting worse.
Right.
And that after those 4 months, that we know that there's damage. They're not getting worse, but they're in their healing phase. So now we're going to work with stem cells and healing the body using peptides and things like that to make patients better. So there's many ways to look at healing post SOT. And we still, I think we've done 550 or more.
Mm-hmm.
It's still less than 25 patients twice. And
that's awesome.
My patients aren't disappearing. Our patients, even if they're not better, they still come back because they know we have more things to do and have more things to take care of. So it's not SOT one and done.
Right. Well, I mean, even for me, like, I mean, I've had a phenomenal experience with SOT, but I wouldn't, you know, I still am not going to start like eating McDonald's. And I've still dealt with, you know, I know that my body's I mean, I've been sick for 10 years and I've had these little corkscrews making holes in my tissue for 10 years. So I recognize that, you know, it's probably going to take a few years to fully heal my insides. And I still take really good care of myself. I still get a lot of sleep. I still take supplements. I still eat really healthy. Diet for me has been like the biggest thing other than SOT in my whole journey has been diet. And I will preach that till the cows come home. It is so critical. But, you know, I think it's not, that's like, all of these things are tools that you have in your toolkit, and SOT just happens to be a really great tool. It's a great tool, but it's not the only thing that's going to fix the problem.
Absolutely. And if you get any more healthy and your brain gets any better, we may have to move you to like Mars or something.
Probably. Well, I feel like maybe that's why I'm just weird is, you know, I only can have conversations about science with you because I have holes in my brain in like the social acceptance and
Yeah.
like non-awkwardness sections.
I'm not good at a get together.
Yeah, it's the corkscrew. I blame it on the viruses in my brain. Why I'm awkward, whatever. But you know, I think it sounds great to say, and to especially if you haven't been in this journey for a long time. Like if you've only had Lyme for a couple of years, and it hasn't turned into a lifestyle for you yet, it's awesome to think, oh, I'm just going to get this SOT and my life is going to go back to the way it was before. But if you were eating fast food, if you were, you know, not getting enough sleep, if you had a really stressful job, you know, if you had candida issues, like all of these things, you know, if you live in a moldy house, all of these things are still going to be factors that are going to prevent you from healing. And so you kind of have to, you know, the Lyme journey for everyone really should be focusing on a journey of like how to make myself a healthy human being for the rest of my life. It's a lifestyle change.
It is. It's like through my trial and tribulations to get to this point, that's why I do antifungals up front. There are 3 buckets of bugs, and this is where we start another episode right here. 3 buckets of bugs: the fungal bucket, the virus bucket, and the bacteria bucket. And I want to make sure that we're okay in all these buckets. And then over here in this one, your hormones, your home. I mean, we start getting
What
into
about the histamine bucket?
Histamines. Histamine. I tell you what, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that one.
Okay, wait. Well, we're coming up on 30 minutes now, so this is actually perfect. Let's end this episode. This is going to be the end of our persister episode. I hope that answered everybody's questions. And I hope you guys learned more about biofilms and persisters and why you should have confidence in SOT, even if you're worried about biofilms. It doesn't matter. SOT gets through because it's tiny. And let's end this one for now, and we'll do another episode.
And that piece that I sent you from the Lyme group answers a lot of these questions. So we can go through that again.
I'm going to post, along with this video, I'll post what Dr. Sloan wrote to also answer some of these questions. So by now, whether you like to read or listen or watch or absorb, I don't know, however you like to get information in your head, we have an answer for you.
We hope.
Fingers crossed. But yeah, and obviously, if you guys still have questions, email the lymelightpod@gmail.com, and we will answer your questions on the show. And we have a new episode coming up, lots more episodes. I know we're behind on answering your questions, but we're getting there. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yes. Peace.